Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. Welcome back with me, Miss Ira, and the presentation of CFR or Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. Okay, today we are going to talk about Chapter 2. I'm going to present Chapter 2 of CEFR entitled Approach Adapted. Here we go, everyone. Okay, the table of contents. The first is an action-oriented approach. The second one is common reference levels of language proficiency. The third is language learning and teaching. And the fourth or the last is language assessment. Okay, the first is an action-oriented approach. An action-oriented approach. Language use, such as language use, embracing language learning, converses the actions performed by persons who, as individuals and as social agents, develop a range of competences, both general and particular communicative language competences. Okay, this is the dimension related to learning. The first one is competences. The second one is general competences. And the third is communicative language competences. What is competences? Competences are the sum of knowledge, skills, and characteristics that allow a person to perform actions. Okay, and the general competences. General competences are those not specific to language, but which are called open for actions of all kinds, including language activities. And communicative language competences are those which empower a person to act using specifically linguistic means. And then context. Context is the situation in which something happens, and that helps you to understand it. For example, in constellation of events and situational factors in conversation. And then the next is language activities. It involves the exercise of one's communicative language competence in a specific domain in processing one or more texts in order to carry out a task. And then language process. Language process refers to the change of even neurological and psychological involved in the production of perception of speech and writing. Next is text. Text or any sequence related to a specific domain and which in the course of carrying out a task become the occasion of a language activity, whether as a support or as a goal, or a support or as a goal, and also as product or process. And then domain. What is domain, everyone? Domain refers to the broad sectors of social life in which social agents operate. For example, the educational, occupational, public, and personal domains. Okay, and then the last is strategy. Strategy is an organized, purposeful, and regulated line of action chosen by an individual to carry out the task which he or she sets for himself or herself, or with which he or she is confronted. Okay. Next is about the general competences of an individual. The general competences of language learners or users consist in particular of their first, knowledge, second, skills, the third is existential competence or the competence that exists in someone, and then ability to learn. And then next, part of general competences. Part of general competences, knowledge. What is knowledge? Okay, declarative knowledge is understood as knowledge resulting from experience. Oh, it's called empirical knowledge, yeah, everyone. And from formal learning, we call it as academic knowledge. And the second one is skills and know-how. Know-how. Specific abilities needed to do something. For example, play violin. It should have specific abilities, right? It depends on repetition, and experience becomes a series of almost automatic processes or know how to play violin. Okay, it's skills. It's called skills or know how to play a violin, for example. Again, the third is existential competence or a competence that exists in someone. Maybe considered as the sum of the individual characteristics, personality traits, and attitudes with concern. For example, self-image and one's view of others and willingness to engage with other people in social interaction. And next is ability to learn. Ability to learn means mobilizes essential competence, declarative knowledge, and skills, and through all various types of competence. Okay, now communicative language competence. Communicative language competence can be considered as conversing several components. There are linguistic, sociolinguistic, and pragmatic. What's the meaning of all of them? Okay, linguistic competence. It is include lexical, phonological, syntactical knowledge, and skills and other dimension of language as system independently of the sociolinguistics value of its variation and pragmatic function of its realization. Okay, next, about sociolinguistic competence. It refers to the sociocultural condition of language use through its sensitivity to social convention. For example, rules of politeness, norms governing relation between generation, sexes, classes, and social groups. Linguistic complication of certain fundamental rituals in the functioning of community. The sociolinguistic component strictly affect all language communication between representatives of different cultures, even though a participant may often be unaware of its influence. And the last is pragmatic competence. Pragmatic competence, what is that? Okay, pragmatic competence are concerned with the functional use of linguistic resources. For example, production of language function, speech, and acts. Drawing on scenarios or script of international exchanges. Okay, next about language activities. Okay, language activities. The language learners or user communicative language competence is activated in the performance of the various language activities involving reception, production, interaction, or mediation. Each of these types of activity is possible in relation to text or in oral or written form or both. Okay. Okay, reception, production, interaction, and mediation. For example, the language activities of reception is silent reading and follow media. It is important in many forms of learning. It used to understand course content, consulting textbook, reference works, and any documents. And the production. The activities of productions are oral presentation, written studies and reports. And then the next is interaction. At least 2 individuals participate in an oral or written exchange in which production and reception alternate and may in fact overlap in oral communication. And the last is about mediation. It helps to communicate directly. For example, the translation, paraphrase, summary, and recode. All right. And then domains. What is domains? What kind of domain? What kind of domain? There are public domain, personal domain, occupational domain, and the last is educational domain. Public domain is everything connected with ordinary social interaction, for example, business and administrative bodies, public services, cultural and leisure activities of a public nature, relation with the media, and etc. And the next is personal domain. It comprises family relation and individual social practices. And the last is, and the third is occupational domain. Occupational domain embraces everything concerned with a person's activities and relation in the exercise of his or her occupation. And the last is educational domain, concerned with the learning, training context, generally of an institutional nature, where the aim is to acquire special knowledge or skill, specific knowledge or skills. The second subchapter is common reference of language proficiency. Okay, this is the talk about the CEFR levels, right? Okay. The CEFR recognizes language proficiency divide into 6 levels, A1 to C2, which can be regrouped into 3 levels. Basic users is A1 and A2, independent user is B1 and B2, and proficient user is C1 and C2. Okay, this is the table of Common European Framework level. The first one is A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. These stages have their own name. Breakthrough with stage 3 hold advantage of effective operational proficiency and mastery. We are going to talk about them on the next chapter. Okay. The third is language learning and teaching. Language learning and teaching. Objectives of language learning and teaching should be based on appreciation of the needs of learners and society on the task, activities, and process that the learners need to carry out in order to satisfy those needs, and on the competences and strategies they need to develop or build up in order to do so. To do what? To, what is it? Satisfy those needs, okay? The fourth is language assessment. Language assessment consists of validity, reliability, and accuracy. What is the meaning of all of them? Validity is concept with which of the framework is concerned. A test or assessment procedure can be said to have validity to the degree that it can be demonstrated that what is actually assessed. The second one is reliability. This is a technical term, technical term. It is basically the extent to which the same rank order of candidates in replicated into separate or real or stimulated administration of the same assessment. And the last is accuracy. Depending on the validity of the particular standard, for example, in the level B1, for the context. It will also depend on the validity of the criteria used to reach the decision and the validity of the procedures with which those criteria were developed. Okay, so the language assessment consists of validity, reliability, and accuracy. Okay, that's all for the second chapter about of CEFR, or Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. Okay, that's all about approach adopted. I hope that all of them will be useful for all of us. Thank you for watching, everyone. See you in the next chapter. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.